Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be checking out one of the buffed Pokemon for Season 13 of Go Battle League, and that is Wing Attack Yanmega. Yanmega is a bug and flying type Pokemon with the moveset of Wing Attack, Aerial Ace, and Ancient Power. And with the Season 13 buff, Wing Attack generates more energy, allowing it to get the charge moves faster. With a typing like Bug Flying, it's gonna need all the help it can get, so I paired it up with a Wall Rain Save Switch and a Lapras Closer. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Wing Attack Yanmega in action in the Ultra Premier Cup. Disaster strikes in the first match as we lead Yanmega into Shadow Kanto Muck. Kanto Muck does have access to Thunder Punch, and I just realized this entire team takes super effective damage from Electric, so this is going to be a very tough fight. I'm going to farm up quite a bit and bait with an Icicle Spear. I'm hoping to try and grab a shield from my opponent. Icicle Spear does get a shield, but my opponent will be able to grab a shield back with their Thunder Punch. I have a lot of energy, I don't want to lose it, so I commit the shield. My opponent is going to send in their own Wall Rain. Their Wall Rain is going to be met with a loaded Earthquake as that's able to land. They will be able to outpace me here, but I notice my timer coming up, so I switch and catch a triple resisted Earthquake back onto Yanmega. Let's go. Yanmega is going to get outpaced here. I will commit the shield, and my plan is to fire off 5 more wing attacks and then CMP tie the Ancient Power to the Icicle Spear. This way, my opponent will have to give up their final shield if they want to get rid of Yanmega. Ancient Power does get the shield, and at this point, Yanmega has done its job. I do have some stored energy on the Wall Rain that I can potentially use later in the match, and now it's all up to my Drip Lapras. I'm going to wait my timer, send in Lapras, and I'm just going to look to massively overfarm in this matchup. I will need a Surf to KO here, but I can overfarm a ton of energy before I throw it. So I'm just going to continue to farm up. Wall Rain still has a ways to go. My opponent sends in Muck, and I'm going straight for the Skull Bash. Let's buff our defense. Skull Bash, big damage, and Lapras gets the farm down. I now am buffed, and I have loaded energy, and my opponent has a Trevenant in the back. All I have to do is make sure to get this into Icicle Spear range, and this should be game over. My opponent is overfarming. I aggressively switch back into the Wall Rain and snipe with the Icicle Spear. Icicle Spear leaves the Trevenant on 1 HP. They will fire off a Seed Bomb, but at this point, this game should be over. Lapras gets the farm down of the Trevenant, and I leave with the Surf loaded. Surf will be taking care of the Wall Rain, and that is a good game. Moving into the next match, picking up a great lead Yanmega into Escavalier. We wall Escav's typical moveset, so they're forced to switch out, and they bring in Gyarados. But here's where having Ancient Power is incredibly useful. Ancient Power, big super effective damage, and now I can send in Wall Rain, tank all of their energy, and commit to the farm down. This way, I should leave with not a lot of HP, but a lot of energy. But as you're going to see, my opponent recognizes my plan, so they intentionally do not throw a second charge move, so their Escav is going to get more farm. My opponent is going to wait their clock, bring back in the Escav, but Escav is being brought into a loaded Wall Rain. Firing off the Earthquake, that's able to land. I should be able to make Earthquake number 2, so my opponent is forced to fire off a Drill Run to deny that energy. Honestly, that works for me. I've managed to get them pretty low. In the back, though, they have Wall Rain. I try and go for an Icicle Spear catch, but my opponent shows great patience, holding on to their energy, and now they get to fire off an Earthquake. I will commit the shield because I need to start firing off Skull Bashes. Skull Bash will do a lot of neutral damage, but what I'm after is the guaranteed defense boost. Firing off the Skull Bash, that gets the shield, but regardless of whether the move is shielded or not, I do get the defense boost, and now these Earthquakes are not going to be doing as much damage. My opponent will be able to reach another Earthquake here, and honestly, I can let this go. Earthquake, not going to KO. I'm in a pretty nice spot here. My opponent aggressive switches Escav to force me to switch out, which is a pretty nice play, because that way, I have to reset my defense boost. Aerial Ace will KO. Back in comes Wall Rain. I fire off the Ancient Power, and it's a CMP tie. That is massive. Ancient Power able to land. It's CMP, and that will be game over for sure. I can bring back in the Lapras. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Yanmega into Shadow Machamp. I just have to watch for the Rock Slide. My opponent will save switch into Shadow Lapras. I'm going to stay in and fire off Ancient Power. I will get some pretty big chip damage or grab an early shield, and I'm able to get shield advantage, and now I'm going to mirror and bring in my own Lapras. My opponent doesn't really have incentive to bait here, because they want to boost up their defense as soon as possible, so I will commit the shield on the Skull Bash, and then fire off with a Skull Bash of my own. This is going to be hitting for some pretty significant damage, even with their defense being boosted, and Skull Bash is able to connect. My opponent is going to fire off another Skull Bash, and now it's decision time. I decide to let it through. Skull Bash will do quite a bit of damage, but since I do have a small health advantage, purely based on the fact that they took some wing attack damage from Yanmega, I should be in an okay spot here. Skull Bash lands, my opponent falls just short of being able to reach the move. They send back in Shadow Machamp, but Shadow Machamp is honestly in a pretty rough spot because they are trying to counter down a double buffed Lapras. Lapras able to withstand the counters and reach another move. This is big. This Surf is going to grab a shield from my opponent, and they're finally able to get the farm down. They will be able to get a shield back here with a potential Rock Slide, so I will commit the shield. My opponent does go straight for the Rock Slide. In the back, they have Wall Rain, and I'm going for another Ancient Power. Let's get some nice chip damage here onto the Wall Rain before I bring in my own. And now, I should be in a pretty nice spot here. They're going to fire off an Earthquake, perfectly fine by me. No shields remaining, so whether I was fine with it or not, I just have to take the damage. I'm firing off an Earthquake of my own here. This Earthquake is not quite going to KO, but it will get them very low. And at this point, I am not in Earthquake range, so I should just be able to farm down and leave with an Icicle Spear loaded to KO my opponent. They realize that, and they concede the match. The good leads continue in the next match, Yanmega into Escavalier. My opponent throws one counter, save switches into Kingdra, and I immediately respond with Wall Rain. Wall Rain, thanks to its bulk, has an okay matchup here. I'm able to fire off these neutral Icicle Spears. However, if Kingdra is able to reach an Outrage, that would do a ton of damage, so I am going to respect it with a shield. My opponent does full send the Outrage, so that's a pretty big shield. I'm going to overfarm. I definitely should have overfarmed more here, but I overfarm a decent amount and then fire off the Icicle Spear. Icicle Spear plus one Powder Snow is able to KO. And now back in comes Escavalier looking for a farm down. They're not going to be able to farm down without me reaching an Earthquake though. An Earthquake will be able to deal some significant damage. They get the farm down. I bring back in Yanmega. They have Ampharos in the back, and I am in a tremendous amount of trouble. As I mentioned at the beginning, this team is triple weak to Electric, and now I'm going up against an Ampharos with shield advantage. This is a potential Focus Blast, so I will use my final shield, and it's a Zap Cannon. Thankfully, they do not get the debuff. Here, I throw on slightly suboptimal timing, and as you're going to see, this is actually going to cost me. As I am going to be farming up here, and this Surf ends up being on CMP, so throwing on suboptimal timing here ends up costing me in a big way, as I'm going to miss out on that Surf. And now I bring back in Yanmega. Yanmega firing off the Ancient Power. That's not enough to KO. Back in comes Escav. Escav should have the Mega Horn loaded. It's resisted, but that is enough damage to take out Yanmega, and that is a good game. Tough lead in the next match, Yanmega into Shadow Snorlax. Snorlax just has a massive bulk advantage, so I throw one wing attack, save switch into Wall Rain, and I'm going to be met with Shadow Machamp. Definitely not a great Pokemon for Wall Rain to see. I fire off the Icicle Spear, they let that through. They're going to overfarm quite a bit, and then fire off the Cross Chop. If I shield, they can just mirror shields and farm down, so I'm going to let this through, and I'm hoping that 4 wing attacks KO, so I don't have to shield a Rock Slide. I'm going to send back in Yanmega. Yanmega just not able to farm down, so I will respect the potential Rock Slide. But as you're going to see, they only go for a Cross Chop, so I think they were actually running payback. Back in comes Snorlax. I'm going for the Ancient Power, hoping for the boost. Ancient Power lands, and Yanmega gets the boost. You love to see it. Now I should be able to tank these body slams a lot better and start applying some serious pressure in this matchup. I'm going to overfarm quite a bit and then fire off another Ancient Power at my opponent. Ancient Power is going to get the shield. Snorlax looking for the farm down, but Yanmega says no. Thanks to the quicker energy generation, reaching another Ancient Power, able to KO, and in the back, my opponent has Gyarados. Typically, you would want to shield the first move as you're going to be going for a Skull Bash, but in case they get the debuff, I let it through, and they do get the debuff. I build up to the Skull Bash. I'm going to go for a bait. This is risky. Surf does get the shield. That is big. And now I just have to make it to the Skull Bash. I will commit the shield. Odds are they're probably Aqua Tail baiting me. And they do. Lapras gets to the Skull Bash. And this will be GG's. Skull Bash takes care of the Gyarados as we secure the win. Moving into the next match, leading Yanmega into Swampert. I'm going to stay in, try and catch a Hydro Cannon, but my opponent is actually the one to switch. They bring in Kanto Muck, and as we've seen, any Mon with electric coverage is an absolute nightmare for this team to deal with. They're going to fire off the Thunder Punch. I will respect it with a shield, because Yanmega, while it can do some okay damage, is very frail. I'm going to fire off another Ancient Power. My opponent has seen the damage of the first one, so they know they can actually tank that. So I am now going to bring in Lapras, and Lapras is going to try and commit to the farm down here. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to farm down before my opponent is able to reach the next Thunder Punch, but as you see, they're just able to reach it right before the Ice Shard is able to go through, and unfortunately, I take extra damage. So now, I've taken quite a bit of damage on this Lapras. I still don't know what their final Mon is. They're going to bring back in the Swampert. Thankfully, I do have a lot of energy on Lapras, so I'm going to be able to apply some pressure here. I'm firing off Surf number 2 onto the Swampert. Swampert taking a lot of damage to do so, as they're going to let that through. I'm going to farm up quite a bit. My opponent is going to be firing off the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon should just about be enough to KO. Plus one more Mud Shot, but they switch, and their final Pokemon is going to be Walrein. And now I may need to make a catch to win, so let's make that happen. I switch into Yanmega, and I'm able to catch an Earthquake for the second time this video. Yanmega is able to reach the last second Ancient Power. Ancient Power is going to hit for super effective damage, so we do see a shield from the Walrein. And now I'm in a pretty tricky spot here. I think I have to have an Icicle Spear shielded to win this because I am at an energy disadvantage. I'm going to go for the Earthquake first, hoping my opponent is going to let it through, but they commit the shield, and unfortunately, barring my opponent failing a catch, this is now GG's. Because, as you're going to see, they're slightly ahead of me in terms of energy, so unless they go for a catch and fail it, there's just not a way that I can win this game. I'm going to play it out, basically hoping for my opponent to make a mistake. Maybe they will decide to switch out, but as you're going to see, they do not. They correctly shielded an Earthquake, and that is going to mean game over for me. Same leads in the final match, we have Yanmega into Shadow Swampert. This time, I'm going to throw one Wing Attack, immediately safe switch into Walrein. My opponent is staying in here, so I'm going to get some early chip damage, firing off the Icicle Spear. Icicle Spear is going to be able to land. My opponent will overfarm a little bit, and then fire off the Quake. I will respect it with a shield. They do full send it, and my opponent is going to respond with their own Walrein. As we've seen, Swampert Walrein core does appear to be a staple in the Ultra League Premier Cup at the current moment. I land the Earthquake. My opponent is going to continue to farm and fire off a move before I'm able to reach Earthquake number 2. This Earthquake is going to get me below half health, and a second Earthquake will be lethal. Unfortunately, they are still in a range where my second Quake will not quite KO, so I'm going to try and go for a catch. I farm up, switch into Yanmega. Were they able to react fast enough? Yes, they were. Very nice reaction time by my opponent, as unfortunately, I am not able to make that catch for a third time. I'm going to bring in Lapras. In the back, they have Wing Attack Charizard, and I'm definitely happy to see the Charizard going up against my Lapras. With shield advantage, they are not going to bait as they go straight for the Blast Burn. I'm going to return fire with these Surfs and begin to start grabbing shields from my opponent. But my opponent actually lets it go. They are putting their full faith into their Swampert, and Swampert with 2 shields is incredibly scary. I will be able to get a nice farm down and leave with quite a bit of energy to threaten the Swampert when my opponent decides to bring it back in. And if you remember, that Swampert took an Icicle Spear earlier, so they are definitely in a range where a Surf will threaten. I'll fire off the Surf. Surf is going to grab the shield. I'm going to throw Aggressive Switch into my Walrein. They mirror, and I'm able to farm down. Opponent may have thought I had a move bank, but I did not. And now I have an energy lead. They're going to be forced to fire off a move, which they do, and they do not have the back-to-back moves loaded here. So as you're going to see, Lapras able to reach the Surf. Had they doubled up, I would have lost, but they did not. Surf KOs, and that is a good game. All in all, I enjoyed Yanmega more than I was expecting to. The quick energy generation of Wing Attack is a definite improvement over using it in seasons past. However, the bug flying typing still holds it back quite a bit, and Aerial Ace just isn't the strongest move. So while it does have a little bit of potential as a Mon, for the time being, it definitely qualifies as more of a spice pick than something I would recommend investing in. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.